But we've seen meetings on the right with Hastie and Taylor. They've obviously been positioning. There's no challenge this week. Susan Lee says the idea of it happening next week from Angus Taylor is ridiculous, but is it?
Well, next week is Senate estimates, and we'll be focusing then, all the senators, on holding this terrible government to account. That's the job of Senate estimates, to make sure that we hold the government's feet to the flames, that we ask the questions about why the decisions that they've taken have been made and what they expect those consequences to be. So Senate estimates is our focus next week.
There, as you say, and I think it's perhaps a great euphemism at this point, that the coalition and the Liberals and the leadership is in a state of flux at the moment. I would add that bit there. This needs to stop, right? So something needs to happen here. Does Angus Taylor need to come out and say, I'm not going to challenge, I'm backing Susan Lee, or does he need to do the opposite of that?
Well, there has been no challenge laid down. No one has come out and
holding our breath.
I am challenging for the Liberal leadership.
Yeah, but you know how these things work.
That
We're
may
all
be
on
the case.
tenterhooks.
I would imagine that's the case. I understand, Laura, that the media would be, and I can understand how frustrating this must be for Liberal supporters.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is that our job up here right now is to hold the Labor government to account, because they are the ones that are letting Australians down. They are the ones that are making Australians poorer. They are the ones that are seeing your living standards go backwards. Our job this week, and our job particularly next week during Senate estimates, is to unpack why that is, the decisions that they are making that are making your life worse.
How do you bring this to a head? As you say, a state of flux at the moment. It can't continue.
Well, the conversations between Susan Lee and David Littleproud will resolve one way or the other. But in the meantime, there are plenty of us here that need to do the job at hand. You know, this Labor government yesterday, there they were strutting around the House of Representatives, which is just extraordinary considering they have so much to hang their heads in shame for. The idea that interest rates have gone back up because inflation is again out of control, and that the RBA have come out and said that they're expecting interest rates, well, they're expecting inflation to rise even further. At the same time, and Michelle Bullock is doing the right thing, you know, she's trying to remove the politics from the decisions that she is making. But she has to respond to aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is caused by two things, public spending and private spending. Now, Jim Chalmers just yesterday, blamed the private sector for rises in interest rates. That's just outrageous, for rises in inflation. Absolutely outrageous. He said that holiday makers were pushing up inflation. So anybody out there that took a holiday over summer, apparently inflation is your fault. It's not Jim Chalmers' fault. Well, give me a break. Public sector spending has increased faster in the last 4 years than it has in the last 40 years. There are a whole series of programs that have entirely run out of control. They're uncapped, unmeans tested. So things like FBT exemptions on EVs, home battery programs. These are all blowing out beyond any expectations, and the government is doing nothing about it. In fact, it's pointing in a different direction. It's blaming economists that criticise its spending programs, saying that they're politicised. Well, is Chris Richardson really a political animal? Is Richard Holden? Is Ryan Bloxham? Is Alan Oster? I mean, it's outrageous that he could get away with essentially blaming anybody else and not take responsibility for both the rise in inflation and the interest rates that go up before it. And Australians will pay the price. Yeah. $23,000 more people are paying on their mortgages than they were 4 years ago when Labor came to power.
What about the capital gains tax discount? Should that be looked at? This is the conversation today. Would you back it?
Well, clearly that's exactly what Labor are doing, because when Labor run out of money, they come after yours. The reason why the capital gains tax discount is there in the first place was actually a red tape reduction measure. If you calculate capital gains tax based on indexation, it's actually quite a complicated measure. When John Howard brought in the capital gains tax, he said this will simplify your tax return. And it absolutely has. There's a reason that it's there. Moreover, the capital gains tax discount is used largely by people that are, that are investors, obviously, that are landlords. And if you start removing those tax incentives for landlords, you're going to increase the rental crisis. Rents have already gone up by 22% under this Labor government. So no wonder we have a housing crisis. Will reduction in a capital gains tax discount actually increase housing supply? I don't see that anybody has proven that yet.
Okay, so that's a ruling out of any bipartisanship or any further conversations with the government on that.
Well, if somebody can demonstrate to me that if you remove the capital gains tax discount, a red tape reduction measure, that it's going to dramatically increase housing supply, I'll be open-minded to seeing the evidence of that. But no one has shown me the evidence of that. This simply seems like another tax grab by a Labor government that has run out of money.
Okay, let's talk about what the ACTU is pushing for today. New guidelines when it comes to stopping work in extreme heat. Now, for some construction workers, the union is saying perhaps that should be at 35 degrees Celsius. What do you think about that, Jane?
Well, look, I think that there is a level of common sense that can kick in here, that we don't necessarily need to set rules and regulations. Of course, we don't want people working in extreme conditions. That's unfair and unreasonable. But at the same time, when we're seeing our productivity forecasts go backwards, and they did, Michelle Bullock's monetary policy statement yesterday demonstrated that the Reserve Bank's forecasts for productivity have decreased, not increased. Do we really want to be putting more unnecessary restrictions on businesses and how they operate? Now, as I said, we don't want to see people working in conditions that are unacceptable. But common sense has to kick in here. The idea that somehow all bosses and all businesses are bad people and all employees are victims is a nonsense. The only way we get our economy working is when employers and employees work together. If productivity goes backwards and economic growth remains as stagnant as it is right now, all we're going to see is the pie stay the same. And that's when people start talking about redistribution, who's doing well and who's doing badly, and who we're going to, rob Peter to pay Paul. What we want to see in the Liberal Party is the pie grow in a sustainable way, grow without pushing up inflation further. And the only way to do that is to increase productivity. Now, we had a productivity roundtable just, 9 months ago? What has come out of that? In fact, our productivity forecasts have gone backwards under Labor. That's not a commitment to productivity. That was a commitment to some sort of, performative economics, not actual economics.
It's going to be a cracker budget this year. Jane, good to talk to you as always. We'll see you soon.
You too, Laura.